So, today on my channel, we're diving into some of history's most controversial games, known only not for their groundbreaking gameplay or engaging story, but for the controversies they have sparked among communities. Keep watching to find out some of the worst offenders. I'm starting off the list with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and specifically a mission called No Russian. There are very few games as recognizable as Call of Duty, so it's no stranger to controversy. The mission infamously involves the mass shooting of civilians, for which they receive a lot of bad press and shock value. You're placed at the center of a terrorist attack in a Russian airport, but not to prevent it, but to commit it. You're playing as an undercover CIA agent, trying to win the trust of Vladimir Makarov. The mission starts you opening fire on a crowd of civilians, with Lieutenant General Shepard saying, "It will cost you a piece of yourself, it will cost nothing compared to everything you save." This forces you to look into yourself, and it's for all the right and all the wrong reasons one of the most memorable moments of Call of Duty. Rockstar has built quite the reputation for itself as a developer that loves to test the boundaries of what's deemed acceptable in the gaming world. Their name alone sparks curiosity and concern in equal measure. So, when it was announced that they were working on a game reminiscent of GTA, but set in a school, eyebrows were raised. While calling Bully 2006 a mere schoolyard version of GTA is a bit of an oversimplification, it certainly carries the same bold, edgy spirit that fans had to come to expect from Rockstar. However, not everyone was on board with the game's dark humor and free-for-all combat style. Critics were quick to point fingers, claiming it glorified violence, particularly against students who could be whacked with an array of weapons ranging from baseball bats and sledgehammers to the whimsical spud cannons and poison guns. The creativity didn't stop there. The game stirred up such a ruckus that it was outright banned in Brazil. Meanwhile, other countries opted for a more lenient stance, rebranding it as a Canis Canem Edit, which translates to Dog Eat Dog, a nod to Bowar's Academy's motto. Despite the name change, the game itself remained unchanged, much to the delight or dismay of its players. It's not like Rockstar hasn't seen these kinds of accusations before. Even prior to the launch of Bully, as GTA has been scrutinized for making light of outrageous violence. Yet, despite its controversies, Bully delivered a delightfully quirky and laugh-out-loud experience in numerous ways. It's hard to imagine we'll encounter another game quite like it anytime soon. Fox News, known for its moderate and balanced approach, tackled the controversial topic of EA's shooter Bulletstorm, posing the provocative question, is this the worst game ever? The inquiry was more about ethics than an outright condemnation of the game's intergalactic mayhem. The article gasped in disbelief, noting players are rewarded for shooting enemies in their private parts, and then, just to ensure that no one was left in the dark, added, such as the buttocks, for those who might not be up to speed with their anatomical terminology. However, much of the uproar surrounding the piece has centered on a statement from the author and celebrity psychiatrist Carol Lieberman, who claimed that video games have contributed to a rise in non-consensual sexual behavior. In itself, Bulletstorm truly stands out as a single-player shooter. With its outrageous humor and over-the-top antics, it manages to pack in a surprising amount of personality and emotion. While the ending left me feeling a bit let down while its sequel tease, I can't help but feel a thrill at the thought of Grayson and Bulletstorm's next adventure. Wolfenstein has been around longer than my existence on this planet. It's all kicked off with the two groundbreaking anti-Nazi stealth games for the Apple II and Commodore 64, eventually evolving into the iconic first-person shooter we know today. Thanks to ID Software, this game didn't just make waves, it created a tsunami that paved the way for legendary titles like Doom and Call of Duty. Let's be real here. Nothing shocking about casting Nazis as the villains. They're practically the poster children for bad guys. Nobody batted an eye when Indiana Jones was throwing punches at them, and no one ever questioned whether films should take aim at those of history's most notorious evildoers. Sure, some folks have suggested the game should steer clear of politics, and let's not kid ourselves, the Nazis didn't just pop up out of thin air. They were a powerful regime that sought to dominate Europe and were responsible for the deaths of millions. ID Software is the genius behind this masterpiece, and they've given us a treasure trove of classic games like Commander Keen, Doom, and Quake. It's also important to give a nod to Apogee, who polished this gem as a shareware title. Without shareware, Wolfenstein wouldn't have made the impact that it did. Trust me, this game was copied onto countless floppy disks. Everyone I knew had a disc of it, and if you didn't, you could bet someone would be more than happy to share a copy with you. Without a doubt, I recommend this game to everyone. It's not just a landmark for PC gaming or video games, it's a significant cultural touchstone. Honestly, the world as we know it today owes a lot of love to Wolfenstein. When it comes to Call of Juarez, the community leaders in El Paso and Juarez have raised their voices against the game, criticizing its use of real-life violence and tragedy as fodder for violent entertainment. In fact, state legislators in Chihuahua went so far as to urge the federal government to impose a ban on the game altogether. Upon its release, the game faced accusation of racism and misogyny as well. Techland, the Polish developer behind this third installment of the Western-themed Call of Juarez series, insists that the cartel is merely an entertainment product, likening it to an action movie with only a passing resemblance to actual events. However, the uproar surrounding Call of Juarez, the cartel, is part of the new wave of controversy that has also engulfed other titles like Medal of Honor. Critics argue that these games are not just offensive due to their gore or profanity, they are fundamentally morally repugnant because they take real-life conflicts where people are genuinely suffering and turn them into interactive entertainment. Opponents contend that contemporary settings such as the wars in the Middle East or the violence in the Ciudad Juarez cartel should be off limits for game developers, as it's impossible to create a game about real conflicts without trivializing the pain of the victims involved. As for Call of Juarez, the cartel itself, it marked a disappointing shift for the franchise. Moving the story into modern times seemed to drain it of its original passion, the charm, replacing it with ridiculous characters and more expletives than a Deadpool flick. While it's not the worst shooter out there, it suffers from all the pitfalls of a budget title, leaving it with few redeeming qualities that would make it worth recommendation. When Carmageddon rolled onto PCs in 1997, Interplay found themselves in a bit of a pickle. They had to tone down the game's over-the-top gore and swap out the unfortunate pedestrians for cheerful, family-friendly zombies after a rather dramatic encounter with the British Board of Film Classification led to a ban. At its core, it was a racing game, but with a twist. You could score points for squashing innocent bystanders who would burst into delightfully pixelated splatters of blood. When gamers reminisce about Carmageddon, They often focus on the epic censorship showdown with the British Board of Film Classification. However, that tends to slip through the cracks is in its sheer fun factor that made it a hit. Stainless Games crafted a wildly entertaining open-world racing experience that not only delivered thrills but also broke new ground in players' choice and physics, leaving a lasting impact on the gaming landscape. In Chiller, players step into the shoes of a rather grim executor tasked with the delightful job of dispatching and dismembering prisoners. The goal? To unleash as much mayhem as possible without a ticking clock. While the game's storyline is as thin as a paper cut, its retro graphics and ear-piercing sound effects might make it feel a tad underwhelming today. However, when it's first hit the scene, the idea of encouraging players to engage in such gory antics caused quite the uproar. The controversy reached new heights in 1990 when Chiller made its way to the NES, allowing kids everywhere to indulge in this macabre fun from the comfort of their own homes. But fear not, as the NES version toned down the visuals significantly, making it a bit less stomach-churning than its arcade counterpart. In February 2003, Dave Mirra took a swing at Acclaim with a hefty $20 million lawsuit claiming that BMX XXX tarnished his reputation. He argued that Acclaim had used his name and likeness to market the game despite their prior agreement to keep his identity far away from the product. Picture this, a game that was essentially a Dave Mirra impersonator featuring scantily clad female riders. It wasn't exactly a masterpiece, so Acclaim had to get creative and recoup their losses. Think skin swaps and minor tweaks, all wrapped up in a flashy rebranding to lure in teenage boys eager for a little risque fun. BMX XXX stands out as one of the most eyebrow-raising games I've ever played, with its heavy emphasis on sexual content and crude humor. It earned a mature rating and even faced censorship on the PlayStation 2. Despite the uproar from concerned parents and retailers like Walmart, the game managed to find its audience. Sure, some folks picked it up just for the nudity because, let's face it, there are always a few curious onlookers, but if you can look beyond the skin, it's actually a pretty entertaining little romp. The characters and mission can be downright hilarious, and the environments are more unpredictable than a Tony Hawk game on a sugar rush. Duke Nukem 3D faced its fair share of backlash from critics who claimed it glorified adult content and violence. To dodge the dreaded banhammer, some countries saw the release of toned-down versions of the game, a strategic move to keep it in the gaming arena. Over the years, Duke Nukem has ruffled feathers for a variety of reasons, including its colorful language, drug references, and sexual innuendos, not to mention development delays that felt like they lasted an eternity. While its graphics and sound may not have aged like fine wine, Duke Nukem 3D still delivers a wildly entertaining and challenging shooter experience. With its fast-paced gameplay, a treasure trove of weapons, a menagerie of foes, and a plethora of location, it keeps players on their toes, sometimes something many modern shooters struggle to replicate. When Kingpin: A Life of Crime hit the shelves in 1999, it didn't just walk in quietly. It crashed the party with a bang. This M-rated game has stirred up quite a ruckus thanks to its outrageous violence and vocabulary that would make a sailor blush. Right from the get-go, players had to sign off on a bunch of disclaimers about the graphic content and confirm they were over 18. Because, parental guidance was definitely needed. But hold on to your hats, a politician pointed the finger at Kingpin: Life of Crime for the tragic Columbine high school shooting. Despite the fact that the game didn't even hit the market until 2 months later. This sparked a wave of retailers pulling the game from their shelves, and Germany decided to ban it altogether. In response, developer Xatrix Entertainment tried to smooth things out by releasing a low violence version that bleeped out the naughty words. Whether that actually calmed the storm is still up to debate, and it's a curious coincidence that Xatrix changed its name to Grey Matter Interactive around the same time. In Kingpin, players step into the shoes of a revenge-driven thug, slicing, shooting, and eliminating foes on a quest to dethrone the Kingpin and claim the title for themselves. You can even recruit fellow miscreants to bolster your gang and expand your criminal empire, all the while wielding an arsenal of upgradable weapons like Tommy guns and bazookas to teach anyone who dares to stand your way a lesson they won't forget. Now, Kingpin Reloaded takes the mayhem up a notch, allowing players to engage in gory battles that target specific body parts. There's even a no violence mode, but fear not, as 3D Realms proudly proclaims the game's official style, the colorful language proudly used by Kingpin's gangster remains. Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Comment and like and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye bye.